Good evening and welcome to Courage in Crisis, Conversations of Faith and Mental Health. I am Algernon Lewis. I'm chairman of the Moravian Church, East and West Indies Province. We're pleased to bring you this program as we, in terms of the region and the world, navigate the challenges of COVID-19 and all the things that it has thrown up at us at this particular time. Today, we're having a discussion that is primarily with pastors. We have pastors on the panel, only pastors. Um, and this is slightly different, but we're also looking at the reality that pastors are also navigating this crisis with everyone else. So we have out of Barbados the Reverend Adrian Smith. He's part of the Calvary and Grace Hill Moravian congregations in Barbados. We have the Reverend Onita Samuel Warner. She is associate pastor of the Zion and Bethel Moravian congregations in St. Kitts. And we have the Reverend Dr. Jeremy Francis, pastor of the Friedensburg Moravian Church in St. Croix. So we are across the region. Welcome to all of you today. And I just want to ask the first question. How are you doing? Individually. Brother Adrian, you can start.
Hi, good evening, Algernon. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, everyone. I am doing pretty okay, just got in from another day of running our feeding program, so that was pretty interesting. But doing pretty good, all things considered.
Great, great. Sister Onita, you are still muted.
Good afternoon, everyone, and hi to my colleagues as well. I am doing pretty good. Very, very, very good.
Wonderful. And Brother Jeremy.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm doing okay. Some days are better than others, but I'm doing okay.
All right, wonderful. So here's where we're talking now. We've been talking about so many issues, dealing with depression, dealing with comorbidity, dealing with families and relationships and so forth. We want to now talk about some of the people who have to deal with other persons and their issues. Our pastors are on the front line in some regard because when our members have issues, they turn to us, they call us. How has it been for you? I'm not throwing it at anybody, but how has it been for you being a pastor in this crisis?
It has been interesting. Very, 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 very interesting.
And interesting is one of those words could go any direction. So you will need to unpack that just a little bit.
It could go any direction, but interesting in the sense of the number of opportunities that have availed themselves for ministry. It has been challenging as it relates to dealing with funerals. I think one of the greatest challenges I've had in this season has been journeying with persons who have lost loved ones and conducting funerals in a way that I've never had to do it before. Talking about 5 persons or 10 persons being allowed, family members having to make tough decisions as to who is allowed at the funeral. Fortunately for us at Calvary, we've been streaming services for quite a while, so we have been able to offer that ministry to families for funerals to allow loved ones to be able to see and still bring some sense of closure. But that has been extremely the most difficult part, I think, of this process. So it has been interesting and so many other areas, but I'll let some of my colleagues talk about some of the aspects.
Yeah, I agree with Brother Adrian. I think funerals have been a particular challenge. I mean, my challenge was particularly slightly different in that I landed at the onset of the corona crisis, of the COVID. So by the time I got in to Friedensburg, I was still trying to just adjust to everything. My installation happened the Sunday, and we were on lockdown by the Wednesday. And so it was coming into a sense where I was still trying to adjust myself and learn people and places. And then the first funeral I had was actually my uncle. And that was really difficult in that, and it was an uncle that I had some affinity for, And I remember saying to the superintendent that we couldn't do the church. We just had to do just the burial. And I remember saying how difficult it was because it really brought you down to nothing. And you get to the graveyard and it's basically straight flight, as it were, in, out, go. And that journey in itself has been particularly difficult and a challenge, and interestingly so. But the ministry opportunities are great. And for me, this season has called for creative ministry in terms of having to find new ways to get older things done.
Yeah, I also agree with I also agree with Brother Adrian and Brother Jeremy. One of the things that happened for us here in St. Kitts is that our lockdowns came later. So whereas we were seeing quite a few other conferences being closed down, we were still able to go to church, etc. But then it allowed us to go into a mode of planning and putting things in place. And the truth is, there's a difference to planning than when something actually starts to happen. So we had a little heads up as to what to expect. But then as reality start to kick in, you realize, wow, technology, we need to find a way to reach as many people as possible. What are we going to do about the ministries that we had that were helping persons? How are we going to cope with the lockdowns? And we were just connecting with so many different people. Commissioner of Police, writing letters, it just became crazy. And of course, the people, want to know what's happening to church. How are we going to have service? So like them, it really called for us to prepare and be ready for whatever was coming our way.
Okay, you all have raised some interesting points, and I'm going to deal with the opportunities, but let's go back to funerals. What do you say to family members at this particular time when somebody is saying, my favorite uncle has died, and he's my favorite uncle, but he has 2 sisters and he has children, and I can't be in the 10. What do you say to those mourners?
Wow. Well, one of the key things to say to them is the truth about the restrictions. Listen to them as they share their own feelings, and journey with the family as the family makes those decisions as to who will be able to come to the funeral or not. Recently, I had a family. The deceased had about 7 children and a whole host of grandchildren. So even within that dynamic, it was, okay, so who can come to the funeral and who will lift the casket? And I could see that for them, it was really a painful process. And that was not the time to try to come up with any intelligent sounding. It was really just to be on the ground, humane with them, deal with their raw emotions. And I've always said to families, be true to your feelings. I may not have all the answers, and none of us really have all the answers. And sometimes even the best or right answer still may not satisfy an individual, but it's the journey with persons through their emotions and their feelings, because it is really difficult, and death is personal to each person.
And the reality of also that you can't just show up at the people's house to have this discussion about what is happening, because you're also doing social distancing and being careful who you go to and so on, because you're not so sure who has anything. So
yeah, so some of this happened via the telephone, and actually as a pastor with privilege to travel during the day, I would still turn up at the gate. So I still try to allow members to see my face, to hear my voice, and to really try to connect as best as possible. In one instance, because I've done funerals every week since we've been on lockdown, the family member had one of their relatives on WhatsApp video calls. So I told them bring the phone so I could talk to them overseas. So they were in Europe, and I was still able to talk to them, to say to them that, we understand that you would love to be here and you can't, but just grieve the best way you can, be true to your feelings, and we will keep you posted on everything that's happening this part. So it's really just about journeying with persons.
I haven't had to do any funerals in this season, but I got the chance to be present at a funeral home while a service was carrying on. And when I arrived at the funeral home, I saw a bunch of cars and I'm like, oh, they have 4 to 5 funerals today. And when I got inside, they said, no, it's one funeral, and people were just outside casually as if it was everything had gone back to the normal, and they couldn't understand that they could not have been there. And no matter how much you told them you can't be here, they weren't. They didn't care, you know. So one of the things I told somebody recently, it's amazing that in this season, people who are getting married would perhaps be happier because they can now limit the amount of persons. But for me, this season, I realized how much funerals mean to us as a Caribbean people, because it's the last chance you get to see persons. So it's a very emotional time for many persons, because I ask myself, if I lost a loved one right now, how would I feel not being able to go? It would devastate me. It would really devastate me.
Yeah, and that is exactly the guiding thought. You really have to exercise a lot of empathy. What would you say what would you want to hear were it you? And that is perhaps, and it's one of the most, sometimes you really don't know what to say. I mean, I did a lot of the preparation for the funerals by phone. My second funeral was a tragic one. So a lot of that, and that was almost at the height of a lot of things here. So a lot of that preparation had to be done by calling and a lot of telephone contact, especially with a grandmother. And that was particularly challenging in and of itself. But it's just to find a way to connect with them. Telephone, WhatsApp. In this season, there's basically no personal contact. Whatever information you have to reach you give it out and say, this is how you can find me. That's the approach for me.
Yeah, that was rough. I remember there's a funeral that I know of where the person had been a long-standing member, done all kinds of things to the church. And some persons are commenting, after all he did, he couldn't even get to go inside the church as his last rite. For somebody, you know, and the fact is that he died, and a lot of church members did not know that he was dead and that he had been buried. And so they didn't get a chance to properly grieve, because this was their beloved senior in the congregation who had been a very nice gentleman and worked with a lot of people. So this around funerals, it has been particularly painful to deal with. And I'm not so sure what is going to happen after this season when the memorials start rolling out. You're going to be having 2 and 3 of them per week, because now you're banked funerals. If you, Brother Adrian, have had funerals for every week in this lockdown, you imagine what's going to happen after the memorials start and the funerals start back. That's another conversation for another time. You're going to say something, Brother Adrian?
No, I'm saying that the memorials bring with it a different reality as it relates to reliving some feelings and emotions and giving persons perhaps a chance to bring closure. And I think the church community and we as pastors, we will have to be patient with persons in that season as well, understanding that a lot of persons did not get a chance to grieve properly during this season. I shudder to think of the myriad of emotional, psychological realities that we have to deal with, along with counselors and psychiatrists over the next 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years down the road. We haven't even begun to see some of the stuff that is manifesting. So it'll be an interesting season.
I believe so. I really, really believe so, because there are a number of things that you just have to deal with. And you're trying to process the death of somebody and also process COVID-19 issues and all the job loss and other things that may be coming through. And that has to take its own toll on our emotional health as pastors, you know, trying to figure some stuff out. You're going to say something, Brother Jeremy?
No. Yeah, I was just agreeing that it does take a toll I mean, at some point, because we're still trying to process how to deal with it, and then we are dealing with the other side of it. I mean, so this funeral is one thing, but then just how to cope with doing, for the want of a better term, doing church. How do we continue to do church, to be church? And then you're still processing your own personal issues. And I mean, it got to a point for me where I just got tired of being in this house. And I mean, there was one particular week when I woke up for like 2 or 3 days, just grouchy and on the wrong side, and almost found myself almost sinking into a little depression, because you couldn't do church as you would want to. You couldn't leave home as you would like to. There were just so many things that you could not do. And that at one point it seemed like those things were mounting up more upon the things that you could do. And it came to a point where I was just, at one point, I just got into the car and just went driving. I just had to get out the house, because in terms of my own self-care and taking care of me, if I didn't do that, I would not be in a position to do anything else.
Self-care is important, and we have been talking a lot to pastors about self-care, because we tend to care about everybody else first and neglect our own emotional health and our own mental health. All right, now, so just navigating the crisis, your own personal stuff, the stuff of church. One of the things that we've had to do during this time is to take our ministries online. Whether you like it or not, you had to decide, for not just survival, but most of us have a passion for sharing the gospel, for wanting to be out there. Not just that our voices are heard, but we know that people want to be encouraged in a time like this. This is a time when people really, really wanted to be able to sing some songs of faith or hear a good word of encouragement. And we really wanted to get that word out there. How has it been shifting from brick and mortar to digital?
Let me go first. Challenging. The challenge was, well, for one, getting adequate equipment to get it out in a way that would make it watchable. Because I mean, if one of the many lessons I've learned is that if you're going to go online, you need to come good. We had one Sunday when we had some technical issues, and the congregation literally cursed us. The congregation, you heard the anger in them and the angst in them because they couldn't get to see church and they couldn't participate as they would like. So, moving to that was a challenge to make sure it's done right. And I think this is perhaps something people don't know, and Brother Adrian can probably elaborate more on this. A lot of people see the output, but they don't see a lot of things that's going on behind the scenes to get it to what they are seeing. And some of the real-time challenges that have to be navigated on the spot, because every Sunday brings a different challenge just to get it out. For us, we were down to 10, so it was a matter of who the 10 was going to be and how we were going to get the 10 to function and do all of that. And then just getting it out, the preparation for that. The other challenge for me is a lot of my members are older, so the only tablet they know is the one that the doctor give them. The only thing the only online they know is where they put their clothes. And so the challenge is, how do we connect to our older members when we have moved to the digital era? And that has been a challenge, but also a consideration that I had to take into view.
Yeah, Reverend Jeremy has highlighted some serious issues, because when we started this, all of us in this conference had assignments, and my assignment was worship. No, I don't mind preparing worship when we're in church, but then we had to consider, how are we going to reach these people? And immediately when we got into the lockdown was Holy Week. All right? I had no clue how to use Zoom. I learned so much that week. right? I became like a technician. I call myself a technician these days because the amount of things I had to learn in that space and teaching others. And as Reverend Jeremy said, persons see what we put out. But I hardly slept that week. I was stressed out because you had to be preparing songs, sending out emails to persons who are sharing in the services. And added to that is the financial cost. There is, well, for us, there is a serious financial cost. Zoom is not free for us. The radio broadcast that we have to pay for in the afternoon is not free. It is costing us. But we said we are trying our best to meet every single person. But at the same time, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have learned some new skills in this season. And it really says that going forward, there are some things that we can tweak and do even better as a church. It has really forced us to do some things that we have never done before. So the opportunity to have learned some things and create other ministries, a media ministry, never thought of really having that within the conference itself is really pushing you to do some things you've never done before.
So I'm coming from a different angle, Brother Algernon, as you are well aware that Calvary has been streaming services for almost 6 years. So we have been on Facebook, and then from there we developed the YouTube. We've explored GodTube and a few other platforms that we've explored. So our challenge wasn't being on social media. The challenge was we had to move the operation from the church as the restrictions went down to 3 persons, and there was a debate going on here in Barbados about pastors being essential or non-essential and all of that sort of stuff. And so in an effort to still abide by the law, we moved the setup from the sanctuary, physical sanctuary, to the manse of the pastor. So that was a whole new dynamic that we had to figure out and work with. What I have learned in terms of the whole media is the importance to just be true in terms of what it is that you are putting out. We have been doing this, as I said, for 6 years. So for us, what we sought to do was to still give persons something that they were familiar with. So we have 6 years of content of our choirs recorded, and so we are able in our Sunday morning ministries to feature the church choir, to feature the junior choir, so that the worshiping community could still get that sense of the familiar in this uncertain, trying season. And I must say, it is a team effort. So the ministry that we're able to do online, Moments of Hope, is really the output of the team. Some persons who are really working behind the scenes. I must mention Brother Philip Hackett, who's the video editor. And if anybody knows about editing video, that is sometimes a tedious process, but he deals with that aspect. I've had to become a singer, Brother Jeremy, so you got to pray for me. Onita, I wish
we pray for you. We pray for the people who are listening.
Hallelujah.
That is true. But you stand before God's people and you say, God, just enable me to minister and to lead the people of God. But as Brother Jeremy said, what happens behind the scenes. I told the team the other day we should really do bloopers and blumper and that sort of stuff, blunders, so that persons could see that they got this particular output, but here's what went on all of this time. But just to touch on something, I think that was highlighted, that not everybody has maybe access, and so we took a deliberate decision at Calvary to offer the ministry on YouTube, and the reason why we highlighted YouTube was that most smart TVs have YouTube, or persons do have software that allows them to access YouTube, and perhaps are more inclined to do YouTube than they are Facebook. And so we have made sure that we are committed not just to the Facebook platform, but definitely to YouTube. And therefore, when it goes on a TV screen, a whole family can watch, as opposed to a personal device, a tablet, or a phone. But we are still mindful of those persons who don't have that platform. And I think that as a church, it caused us to think once again about the whole radio ministry. Sometimes the cost of radio is so expensive. In fact, when this started, I actually called the TV station just to get a sense again of what it was to go on TV. And when I saw those figures, I was like, wow, Lord, you got to send a sponsor. And that perhaps that's something that we have to look at going forward very intentionally. Our presence on radio, or maybe creating our own radio station. Who knows? This is probably the season again for us to really look at that so that we can cater to all of our members and not just some.
Yeah, if I could jump in here quickly, that just to say that that was one of the driving things for us too. We had at Friedensburg, there has been a radio program there now for years. And so it was basically, so that's a weekly broadcast. Every Sunday afternoon at 6 o'clock, the service goes over. So we had to, one of the things in making the decision as to where we went, that's part of the reason why it's done from Friedensburg, because of that regular outreach ministry. And that is also perhaps widely listened to, simply because it also had the clientele, but for those persons who can't get on the Facebook. And we also went to YouTube, but the issue for us was we had to find a way to stream it simultaneously that was free. That and we were able to find one, because like Brother Adrian says, it is even the hardware you need to do it is costly. And I think going forward, one of the things we would need to do as a church is to make sure, even if it is subsidized some way, that at least there is one congregation in every conference that is so equipped, so that in times like these, we know that for sure something will be coming out of the conference because this facility exists.
So you've had some exciting times. I like the fact what Sister Onita said earlier, that she became a technician. She learned a lot of stuff in 1 week. So the crisis has caused us now to improve our capacity and our ability to exist, as it were, in small spaces. The fact is, Brother Adrian was ahead of the game at this Calvary, because you started the process ahead. So you could have moved, not quite seamlessly, because everything had to move to your house now, which was had to be a different ball game, trying to find the right space and right lighting and all the other things that were happening. And I've seen some of your content. Your content is pretty good. So the thing about that is that we recognize that we were forced into something that is, for me personally, is a good thing. That having a digital footprint is not a simple matter. It is something that we need to be deliberate about, not just something that we say, well, because we didn't have a choice. We need to definitely have a digital footprint. So the idea that you suggested, Brother Jeremy, about at least one congregation having that certain capacity, we need to figure that out. I think as many congregations as possible as that can afford it should be able to be out there offering good content, good quality content, so that we can really do ministry. There was something that you said there, though, and I know some people have been struggling with this throughout the region, as pastors being essential workers, and the fact that during the crisis, some persons had to go on the road, or you had to go and do your broadcast, or you got to do different things. Was that something that was a real factor, a real issue for any of you, being essential or non-essential?
The concern for me was the debate unfolding on the national scene. And so in my mind, I think it became somewhat of a distraction to some other things, because at the end of the day, my being essential is not validated by the government. My being essential is validated by God. And so God deems me essential to his purpose in terms of salvation. Paul said to the church that he has given us the ministry of reconciliation. And so we are essential in drawing persons back to God. I also have a colleague who wrote an article, and he raised the understanding that if we take the Hebrew understanding of human beings, we are body and soul. If you take the Greek understanding, we are body, soul, and spirit. And so you have the healthcare workers dealing with the physical, the body. So you do need the pastors to deal with the spirit. And so from that vantage point, we are not waiting for a government or any agency to tell us that we are essential. We know we are essential because there are things that have manifested, and more persons aren't struggling because of having caught COVID. They're struggling with the dynamics that COVID has caused. And so we were dealing with the ramifications and the manifestations of that. So as pastors, I think that I didn't buy into the whole debate, and I didn't weigh in on it on a national. I didn't allow it to be a distraction because there were so many other pressing things that need to be addressed. But I got concerned because a number of pastors were vilified, unfortunately. A number of churches were attacked and labeled, I think without evidence. And some pastors got distracted, and some pastors are still agitated about the whole perception of how the government, and in some cases, ministers of government and even persons in general society view them. But I take comfort that Jesus did say that if they did certain things to him, imagine what they will do for me. So my whole role is to be true to the calling of God and let the witness of God, the light of God in me and through the church shine, and persons will see the value of the witness of the church of God in the community.
I fully agree with you. For me, that was a non-debate of whether I'm essential work or not. If one of my members call and there's somebody dying and I need to go and deal with it, I will go and deal with it because that's something that God has called me to do. And so I can't wait for the government to validate that. And I felt particularly in some territories where persons were holding church when they shouldn't, I think that the government was a little skeptical as well in terms of giving pastors more of a free rein. On a little humorous note, though, somebody did note that Brother Adrian's singing has improved. So that's a message that's come.
Hallelujah. Praise God. Keep praying for me.
Right. So you are doing well, Brother Adrian. Sorry?
I'm going to go listen to the
You're going to go listen. Okay,
that
because
come to pass on Homework Street.
Brother Jeremy was in college with me, and he told me from day one I can sing. I just need to stay with strong tenors and hold my part. So his teachings did pay off. So thanks, Brother Jeremy.
Right. Right. But you talked about something else. It was come up. I think three of you have used the word opportunity. Opportunities to ministry. And I want us to talk a little bit about that. What are the opportunities that you've seen or that COVID has presented? Because this is almost coming for some people, it's coming out of left field for some people, thinking that this is the worst thing that has ever happened. And here you are coming saying, here, this has provided opportunity. Could you say some more about that, please?
Yeah. One of the things that we are realizing is the opportunity to reach more persons within the Moravian context. In addition to those who we would reach outside of the Moravian community, there are those who haven't been to church in a while, or we haven't seen in a while. And because of the opportunities to reach them through the Facebook and other platforms, we've been able to reconnect with quite a number of persons who are truly grateful for the presence of the church in this season. It has also allowed us to, as pastors, I believe, generally network even better, reaching out to persons. So it has really provided that opportunity of reconnecting with quite a number of people that we have as well. It also has given the opportunity to realize that whereas sometimes we may have meetings and persons can't attend because of other commitments, what this season has done is persons are already home. So if we have a meeting at 8 o'clock, we can just send a link and persons are able to log on right from the home. And we have gotten greater participation and attendance from persons because because they are already home, whereas we would get excuses because of other commitments they may have that they can't come physically to the church. So that has also presented the opportunity for persons to really be present at meetings, etc.
Anybody else wants to jump? Yes, but
yeah. Oh, let Jeremy go first.
Yeah.
Brother Jeremy,
I agree with Onita, especially in terms of the meeting. Yeah, I agree with Sister Onita, particularly with the meetings. It's easier. And again, though, it's easier for me for one set of people other than the other. The older set is a different approach, but the set that are technologically savvy, it's easier. You get more participation out of them. But the opportunity to almost still carry on, not almost, carry on ministry, but still be, what's the term I want to use? In tune, in touch, relevant, as it were, to persons' realities is one of the things. So, for example, I have a prayer meeting on Wednesday mornings by phone. I am able to have a conference call kind of thing. So persons call in. So every Wednesday morning at 6 o'clock, 6:10, we gather for 10 minutes of prayer. And we come out, we gather on the phone, we have 10 minutes of prayer, say hello to everybody and wish them well on their day. That's one of the opportunities that perhaps we would not have had it not been this time of experience. The other thing is, I think this might be a bit controversial, but I also think one of the opportunities it has done is has caused us to rethink even worship. We don't need 3 hours in church to have a full service. Because of the ramifications that we have, is almost as if we just have to prepare ourselves that we come to do this and we're going to do it well from the very beginning to the very end. And we don't need 3 hours, 2.5 hours to prime and pump and prod. Come, get the worship going, get the word out, bid, say farewell, and have a good day. And I think those are some of the opportunities for us to reevaluate, recreate, reconnect in a different kind of way, as one of the things that I think is one of the opportunities that Corona has brought to us. And I don't think, yes, the negative side of Corona is livelihood and shifting of routines and what's not. But I think the positive things is that it has really caused us to, one, rethink, and two, rethink, evaluate, reevaluate, and find new ways to do a lot of the old things that we've been doing and still need to do.
So I agree with my colleagues, Algernon, in terms of the reach. What we have seen from Calvary, our numbers for live streaming the services are up. The number of persons who we do Bible study via Zoom, so the number of persons who log on for Bible study, that's up. We had prayer meeting both at a provincial level, a conference level, and the numbers at prayer meeting are up. And if we were having it as in a physical setting, we will not have had those numbers. We would not have had those numbers. So we have been able to reach persons who've been telling me they've been wanting to come to Bible study, but they had to work and all of those excuses. They are now present every Wednesday or Thursday, in my case, for Bible study, and it has been very meaningful. I want to make this point, and it's interesting. We have also been able to reach people's hearts. And if I can just explain, we run a feeding program at Calvary, and we've been doing a hamper ministry. And though tithes and offerings are down, the giving towards those 2 ministries in particular has been up. And we have networked and connected with non-church, parachurch, and non-members who validate that we are doing this ministry in this season, think it is so vital, important, and they have given towards that. So the other day, a member called and said, pick up. And I picked up, it was 2 whole chickens for the feeding program. Somebody else called and said, look, I only have 4 packs of macaronis, but y'all use it for the feeding program so people could be fed. and giving has been coming in like that. Today we were blessed. Somebody cooked 2 big pots of pillau for the feeding program. We have 2 members who are making masks for those persons who come to the feeding program. So I think our reach now has been able to show persons, hey, we are not just a church that takes, we are a church that gives, and we're going to give to persons at a point when they need it the most. I call it the Samaritan Ministry. If you remember the story of the Good Samaritan that Jesus told, the Samaritan met that man when he was at his lowest. He was a total stranger. He was robbed. He was everything. He had all the needs, and he took the time and the opportunity to say, let me minister to this person. So I think that the opportunities presented to us has been, 1, to be able to reach persons, but 2, to do incarnational ministry, which is the whole idea of Jesus did ask the question or tell the story. He assembled the kingdoms, and he says, receive the inheritance of my father. And they said, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat, thirsty. And they asked him, but when did we see you and do these things? And he said, if you've done it unto the one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. So I think one of the opportunities created has been to really drill in. We can't have the groups meeting physically, but we can still do ministry, feeding programs. We can do, we have something here at Calvary called Hardship Grants, where there's some stuff that persons need. It may be diapers. So we don't have diapers stocked at the church, but members have given monies that would say to me, Pastor, if a mother needs to go and buy some diapers, give her this money so she could buy diapers, or somebody needs medication urgently, help that person get medication. Or another member would say, okay, somebody needs to get from their home to the pharmacy, let's arrange transportation. And so we have pivoted in a position to be able to offer ministry that really touches people right where they are with what they're going through. And I think that that's one of the greatest opportunities that the church is now presented with, the opportunity to do tangible ministry to persons. And I would also add this, we've been now able to do one-on-one ministry. As pastors, we had to take up the membership list and start calling some persons, or commission the elders to call some people. Every week I try to at least call 1 or 2 children just to joke with them, because I really miss the children in church. Yes, they'll be running up and down and crying and all that sort of stuff, but just so they can see me and I can see them. And that also gives parents a 2-minute break from pulling out their hairs with these children in the house, stressing them. So I think the one-on-one ministry, to be able to just connect with members and total strangers. I've had people call me saying, they're going through stuff. If I have a minute, can I talk? Can I listen? And I think that it has allowed us to get back to a one-on-one ministry, to really give persons some attention in this season.
Brother Jeremy, I believe you want to say something.
Yeah. I also wanted to, I love the things that Brother Adrian is doing at Calvary. That is really good stuff. I also want to think that we ought not to negate the reach, and I think I saw some of it, somebody commenting on it as well, of the far reach that our service goes and our online worship goes. Very often, our online services are viewed more by persons outside of our conference and outside of even Moravian circles than even some of our very own person. And for me, that is a major plus, because it's also a form of reaching a different generation. There's some persons who don't normally go to church, but they know you're on Facebook, because I've had that experience where persons say, well, I don't go to church, but I watch you every Sunday. I walked into a place, I'm serious. Even when I moved here, I walked into a place here, and because of, I used to stream when I was at Grace Hill, I walked into a place here and simply said, good morning. And the person said, you're the guy that's on TV. I just watch you. I see you every week, that kind of thing. Here, they were watching me out of Antigua. Now I'm hearing St. Croix. They're telling me, oh, I watched you before. I must come to your church one Sunday morning. That kind of thing. So we must not negate the fact that when we do the streaming and what's not, as much work as it does, it goes further than some of our very own people. And for a while, I think it was probably only Brother Adrian and the Virgin Islands who were doing stuff physically in a congregation, and that is also important. And I think it's also important for a person's psyche A lot of people miss church more than we know. And so when they're able to look at the church and see their own building, it causes them to connect, and there's a psychological reach to them, a kind of way that I don't think we should ever downplay either.
Okay. The question of what Brother Adrian mentioned, for me, that missional aspect of church, and missional meaning the outward looking not just on our church and saying we want to build this or we want to do that, but thinking about the people in our community, our neighbors, being good neighbors to them, and having that food pantry, having that hot meal. I know St. Kitts has done that as well, twice a week. Same thing with Barbados, twice a week. Persons can count on a hot meal that they have been giving. And that has shown a different side of the ministry. That's if you wish, an opportunity. And for me, I see this from a perspective of God's perspective, saying, this is where I want to press you back into. Because isn't that where the church started? Isn't that where church used to meet people, giving them food and giving them clothes, giving them all kinds of things, meeting people there? Because it was, if you wish, the first NGO. Like, I don't want to use that too loud, but from the perspective of meeting people from at the point of their need. You know, when the Moravian Church came, it was education. We went there, we did the education, we taught people how to read, because that's what their need was. When there was no food, church provided food and so on. So that is something that is being an opportunity that I think we have put there. Now we want to go back to the drawing board, not drawing board, but to the question board, because somebody's asking, and they're going back to the question of streaming online. What about fellowship? And if we can say something about the era of virtual church, you know, what are your comments on that? How do we do fellowship online? And what about virtual church?
So what we do for Moments of Hope is that once we get to greeting time, we ask persons to shout out somebody, whether through the chat or to take the moment to WhatsApp somebody and say to them, hey, I am at church, but it's greeting time, and just saying hi, just saying hello, that sort of stuff. For the smaller groups, I know like the Women's Fellowship, they play games and that sort of stuff on WhatsApp, and they're doing some stuff on WhatsApp, small WhatsApp. We started a church WhatsApp chat now. That's something you gotta watch. It's interesting because, you know, every morning you can be sure that we can get quite a number of good mornings and hellos, and you gotta manage your phone memory, and you gotta delete some stuff. But the beauty about that, it allows us. So like this morning was one of our young people's birthday, and everybody was just posting happy birthday, and so you can't physically connect, but we can still connect with each other. So I think fellowship is something that we have to be creative and innovative to do in this season. As it relates to fellowship physically, I believe that the physical fellowship will always be a part of church going forward. Now, virtual church is here to stay. It doesn't matter whether as a pastor or member you like online or not. It's not a matter of whether you like it or not. It is here to stay. And I think the church has to pivot now to change its attitude towards online ministry and online church. I've always been into tech and always loved techie stuff and so on. So it was really sad for me when I heard so many comments of how people spoke so badly about the technology, and to think now that we are in an era where it is the only way that we can do ministry in the sense of services and stuff. I had to just smile, and I had to say, God, keep me humble so I don't rub it in some people's face. And I was trying to share with them 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago about having to shift in this direction. But online ministry is here to stay. But I also want to say that physical presence is also here to stay. The church emerging out of COVID-19 is a church that has to do both. It's not either or.
Either or. It's not a binary thing.
Yeah, I think it's a combined effort. We have to be creative, innovative in how we offer both, but both approaches are here to stay. But I think churches and pastors have to be creative with how we could do fellowship when we can't gather, but we can still connect.
Right. So we actually have run out of time long time ago, right? And we don't want to run out of the next time limit, which is 1 hour. So I read an article recently which is talking about churches that the churches are being like malls in the age of Amazon, just hoping that people will come back after the issue. I think it was a brilliant article. And how is it? What does it mean that churches are being like mauled, Brother Adrian, in terms of just waiting for people to come back? Can you just unpack that a little bit, and then we're going to want to have one other question, and then we can end.
Well, I think the idea of the churches being a mall in terms of shopping preference and gathering and so on, but the mall is old school, or as they say, that's a thing of the past. Everybody's into online shopping. Most persons do online shopping. Everybody's shopping, whether from Amazon or from the stores, online pages, and stuff like that. So if it is that we anticipate that we'll go back to when malls were the dominant thing, and so everybody had to go through the mall and you had to go to the food court, we're not going to go back to those days. I mean, yes, you'll have malls where people assemble and stuff like that, but society has changed, and I think that the idea that the church has to recognize, and we sing it in our hymns of faith, you know, Brother Jeremy and them love to sing through all the changing scenes of life in trouble and in joy.
Trouble and in joy.
We're constantly in a changing world, and I think we have to pivot, we have to adapt, we have to adjust to the changes and to meet the changing congregant. I think that's something that as pastors we have to understand, that there is a changing congregant before us. There are changing persons outside of the church community who still need ministering to. Jesus says, I have sheep who are not of this fold. And those persons still need to be reached. And if these persons are online, we have to reach them online. Some are still in the physical domain. We have to reach them in the physical domain. Wherever God's people are, let the gospel, the good news, the evangelion be preached so persons can hear.
Brother Jeremy, you're saying something?
No, I agree. They Brother Adrian said it best. The fact is that we are now going to have to be a people who will have to be versatile in our ministry offerings, where we'll have to know, even for some of us as pastors, we'll have to begin to realize that our membership now, what we see on Sunday morning, will probably be a third, if so much, of our membership, because the greater portion of our membership will have to be online. Mm-hmm. And it would then mean we have to find creative ways to reach the online membership as well as the membership that is in
front of you, right? I don't think it's an either or case. I think that I believe strongly that we have to go forward with both, meeting people where they are, so that gospel reach them, and the fact that they can reach that broadcast at a time when they want it, not at your convenience. Most people now are saying that my convenience, so that helps them to do that. Closing with this question to each of you, and you may have said it before, but if there's one other thing you want to say, I had a number of questions about some people complaining about the church asking for tithes and offerings at this particular time, and where they do with all the money that they get and stuff like that. But let me just this last question: what is something that you are learning or have learned, just quickly, because we only have 5 minutes.
In a sentence? Church? No. I'm going to sum it up in one sentence. One of the things I have learned in this season is that church is important. And we ought, I mean, for years we have cried and scratched our heads about the declining numbers and people not coming and this and that. But I think one of the lessons that I have learned is listening to how many of our people, even if they might not come, church is still very important in the hearts and in the lives of many. But what we need to learn, or what the challenge we have now, is how do we be the church and become the church to reach those persons who, post-COVID, who might not have come pre-COVID, but still want to have the presence of the church. That's, I think.
Sister Anita?
Yeah, one of the things I have taken from all of this, if I am not well mentally and spiritually, I'm no use to anyone. And so My self-care is very important if I'm going to be effective to help persons in this season. And has also made me realize that at the end of this, I would like to do more courses in crisis management and care, because while you learn a few things at UTC and some things come naturally, this is a season to, as you would say, buck up a little and learn more about caring for the sheep in crisis.
And the reality is that crises are going to continue, because the nature of our times is that there's continuing crisis. So to be better equipped.
We are always in trouble or in joy.
In trouble or in joy.
We are always in trouble or we are in joy. We are always on one of those spectrums. You know, it is either we in trouble or we enjoy.
We enjoy. Yep. But Adrian.
Well, I've learned so much in this season. I'm not sure how to narrow it down to one thing, but I've relearned the importance of team, the importance of working together. Paul, I think in writing to the church at Corinth, he says, the eye cannot say to the ear, I have no need of you, or the foot can say to the hand. We all need each other. And there are persons who are supportive of ministry, supportive of pastors, supportive of us, our families, our wives, spouses, children, siblings, parents. And it is important to work with persons. Sister Onita touched on it. Allow persons to minister to us. Take those moments of rest. I still exercise most mornings, even though I can't get to the gym. Do some reading. I'm actually now doing some DIY projects, doing some painting. I don't know if it looks good, but hey, trying a thing. So finding a balance, I think, for me in ministry in this season of doing the things that you love to do. Don't just let it be about church and ministry, but take some time to do things that you love to do and really enjoy the blessing of community. God has blessed us to not be alone in this season, but he's placed us in a community of faith. He's placed us on islands and in nations where they are more with us than those against us. And I've relearned again the power of the community of faith. We working together to achieve in God's honor.
Okay. When you get past this together, there's a lot of talk, but this was meaningful conversation this afternoon. I really think that the learning is going to continue as we go on. I'm in awe of the sovereignty of God, because some of the things that are outplaying right now, as I look back and say, but wait, we were really being prepared for this in this particular moment. I really want us as people, as church, as pastors, to generally to see this period not as an interruption. Because if we see it as an interruption, we are going to simply go back to what we did before, but rather see it as a disruption. What disruption means that all the variables change, that the whole scenario changes, and so we have to come back again to deal with it. So there's so much more, because there is also a theological thing to this whole COVID-19, and we need to have a discussion about where is God in the midst of that. So gentlemen, you may need to come back for part 2. If I don't get you, I'll have to get some other people to do the hard hitting on the theological front. But thank you very much. Brother Jeremy Francis,
just let me know
Samuel, Brother Adrian.
Come on.
Say that again, please. Right. So that we're gonna take those
just
all
let
those
me know
things
if part 2 is
and okay, I will let you know. We will do that. We indeed have to shift. And so thank everybody for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Again, this has been Courage in Crisis, and conversations in mental health, faith and mental health, and also conversations of theology and church and God, and just conversations in general. We pray that God's favor will be upon you. We pray that the peace of the Lord will surround you, and that in your home and in your life, you will sense that shalom of God, and that you'll be able to just rest in the Lord. Peace. Have a good night. Again, my name is Algernon Lewis, and see you on Thursday. Sorry, on Thursday. Yes, Thursday. when we will have our next session. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.